Greetings, I am Lisa. Welcome to the show. Zorak, one more commandment out of you and thou shalt be blasted.
Mouth breather.
What's up, guys? This episode's gonna appeal to like 5 people, by the way. But I'm hoping that it will be more because, you know, this is my podcast and I can talk about whatever I want. Did I hit record on the camera? Let me just make sure real quick. Make sure I did. Good. Girl Kevin is on my shoulder like a parrot. I'm wearing a cute shirt that keeps shifting and it's making me very upset. I'm in a weird mood today. Just putting it out there. I'm in a weird mood. My cute top is shifting and I don't like that it's shifting because it's a cute top and it keeps moving around and showing my bra underneath it, which I don't like. Girl Kevin's headbutting me right now. It's actually very cute. Meow. Yeah, I'm wearing a really cute shirt that I really like, but it's also shifting, and so like my bra is showing underneath it at certain times. So just like don't judge me if that happens, because I'm aware of it and I don't like it. But this matters not to the audio listeners. So hey, what's up, guys? What's up, audio listeners? What's up, video watchers on YouTube? I didn't go in the comments for the last episode, and I'm sorry. I'm gonna do that. I'll go back. I'll get in the comments. I'll get all up in those comments for this episode, and then also the last episode. But I just want everyone to know that I don't hate Sting. This is important. I don't hate Sting, right? This is a comedy podcast. This is a silly, fun time. And I made fun of Sting a lot in the last episode, like so much. But I actually don't hate Sting. I think he's very talented and very handsome. And ow, don't bite my head. What happened back there? Real quick, Girl Kevin, what happened? Because I was talking and then I felt a very sharp pain in the back of my head and you happened to be standing behind my head. Was this claws or teeth? I don't know. But I don't appreciate it. Anyway, so my whole thing last week was that Sting, he sounds very Jamaican when he sings, and I didn't understand that because he's British, and also nobody knows the words to Message in a Bottle, and I have made fun of that many times in the past. Don't eat my hair, Girl Kevin. Don't eat my hair. But then the irony of it all is that I then had to sing Message in a Bottle at my gig for St. Paddy's Day. And let me tell you, I did it and I nailed it and I achieved the Sting accent. I went full in, guys. Like look, I often try, as a singer, I try to make songs my own when I'm covering them. However, if I can do an impression of the singer who sang it originally, I will absolutely do that. I will try to do an impression. Like every girl in town sings Just a Girl by Gwen Stefani / No Doubt. And they all kind of put their own spin on it. And I'm like, good for you. That's great. Do that. But I try so hard to do the full Gwen Stefani impression. They're like, nah. She does that weird like vibrato. She's like, take this pink ribbon off my eye. Like she does this really, really weird vibrato thing. And I try to straight up do like an impression of her doing it. I think it's really fun. And I think that's the comedian in me coming out. That's like the sketch comedy actor in me coming out. Trying to mimic, trying to like, kind of make fun of this. They imitate them, right? Like, but in a respectful kind of way. But yeah, so I did that with Sting, and I was like, Jessica Stewart on an island lost at sea. Like I actually did it very respectful and I remembered all the words and I did a good job and I don't hate Sting. Guys, last week I really went hard on Sting. I really did. And I had a couple people like, why do you hate Sting? And I'm like, I don't. This is a comedy podcast. I'm allowed to make fun of people, especially people in the God tier celebrity level, right? Sting's God tier. He's untouchable. It's like when the TikTokers tried to cancel Eminem. You can't cancel Eminem. He's God tier. Try as you might. We tried in the 90s. You can't. Dude's gonna do what he's gonna do. So just accept it. No, Sting's amazing. Just don't like forward him the episode, right? Like if you know Sting, don't be like, hey, there's this girl on the internet who did an episode about you and how you sing weird even though you're British. Just don't send him it. That'd be cool. But anyway, so George Lowe has passed away. And this doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people. But he passed away on March 2nd, 2025. And he was the voice of Space Ghost on Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And obviously there's like always celebrity deaths going on. And some, they're all sad. Anybody passing away is sad, but every once in a while one happens and like you feel like a personal, like an extra personal jab, right? Like a weird pit in your stomach. You're like, oh man, like that person. Like, oh, geez. Like that person affected me. Like that death affected me way more than like the other celebrity deaths. And I'll tell you why this one did. So everybody's familiar with Adult Swim now, right? Like now everybody knows Aqua Teen Hunger Force and C-Lab and, just all the, was Rick and Morty Adult Swim? Yeah, whatever. Like all these adult cartoons that have it's become popular to turn the cartoon format into like adult humor, right? Before like cartoons were kind of for kids and then Adult Swim came along and now we have cartoons for adults, which is awesome. But I gotta tell you, it all started with Space Ghost Coast to Coast. This was an incredible show. And if you're not familiar with this show, please just keep listening because I would love to convert you and love to tell you more about this. And if you are familiar with the show, just fact check me. If I say anything wrong about it, just, comment. I'm sure you guys, the internet's always smarter than me. So just whatever. But anyway, so Space Ghost Coast to Coast was a cartoon talk show. And if I'm not mistaken, it really was the start of Adult Swim. It was the start of Adult Swim. Let me look up the creator's name because I can't remember, but he's important. Can you show? Let's mix it up. Where'd Girl Kevin go? Oh, she's over there. Show Gort, but then play the TJ Maxx theme song. Okay, go. You should go. Okay, so Mike Lazo, that's the name that I recognize. It says Mike Lazo and Khaki Jones created Space Ghost Coast to Coast, but Mike Lazo is the name that I really recognize from creating this show. So way back in the day, you had these like Hanna-Barbera type cartoons. Some were good, some were bad. The old people would watch. Like those old school cartoons like Scooby-Doo when it first started. Anyway, there was an old cartoon called Space Ghost, and he was this legit superhero, and they wanted him to be like Superman, and he would fly around the galaxy, and he would fight bad guys and save the day, right? Just fine, just very overdone concepts, and it was not that popular. It did not last very many episodes. It just kind of was lost to, the vault of old shows that just never really went anywhere. So Mike Lazo had the idea to take the designs and the animation cells from the old show Space Ghost and completely do a 180 and turn it into a talk show where it was half animation and half live action. Now, these days, that doesn't sound so crazy. But way back, I believe in the 90s, I want to say like 93, 94, this was a crazy concept. And not only did they want to do half animation, half live action, the live action part was going to be very A-list celebrities. Which is mind-blowing, the caliber of talent they got to appear on this show. We're talking like the Ramones, the Bee Gees, Mark Hamill, Weird Al, Moby, the Moby episode, Bjork, Elvira was on it. I think like not Ashley Judd, one of the Judds. Anyway, they just got these massive celebrities. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. So they had this concept. They were like, hey, we're going to take the old animation from this show that nobody really cares about and that definitely failed, and we want to turn it into a talk show. Now, nobody believed in this. This was just a tiny pitch at the time. And apparently they worked on it in closets, similar to my character Jocelyn from Desk of Death Battle. The whole joke about my character is that she worked worked in a closet. Like, they kept me in a closet. Is my shirt shifting again? Or does it look okay? It's such a cute shirt. It just shifts too much. So anyway, they had this great idea, but they could only work on it after hours in their offices and like edit in closets because it was just a dumb concept and nobody really believed in it, but they just kept going with it, which I think is incredible. And so what they did was they would interview celebrities. And I'm not sure what the contract situation was or what the celebrities had to sign beforehand, but basically they would interview these very A-list celebrities and then be given the ability to edit the interview however they wanted after the fact. So you'd have Space Ghost and Zorak and Moltar, who were two villains from the original show that now they're like his sidekicks, right? Zorak is basically Kevin. Kevin's not even here. That's how much he hates me. But, Zorak would always just... Moltar would be like behind the scenes, kind of the producer, like producing the show. Zorak would be at his like piano and just insult Space Ghost the whole time, which is, they hated each other, just like me and Kevin, who's not even here.
Hey, Zorak, who are you going to call?
I'm going to call you an idiot.
What?
You heard me, mouth breather.
Kitty. I don't even know where he is. But, so basically, they would get these massive celebrities, and I'll show a couple clips here, but they would interview these celebrities, cut up the interviews however they wanted, and then animate it after the fact and create incredible interview moments kind of like this.
It's Mark Hamill here.
Whoa! Look who's here, young people. It's none other than Duke Fartknocker.
Luke Skywalker.
Luke Skytopper of the popular Space Wars science fiction mega empire franchise.
I think it's much more along the lines of a fairy tale than it is straightforward science fiction.
Whatever, Professor. How's Chewie?
So this show is hilarious, and I have no idea how they got so many celebrities to be involved in such a crappy looking show that no one knew about. And the only reason that I know that no one knew about it is because this show was so significant to my formative years, to my upbringing. And I'll tell you why. So I was 13, I believe, when I landed the role for All That. And I was new to comedy acting. It was new only in the sense that I had now booked a role where I needed to be funny. I was funny in the Even Stevens role, which came right before it. I booked Even Stevens. I was Carla and Marla? Yeah, it was Carla in a couple episodes of Even Stevens. And that was a comedic role. And that's when I first kind of realized, I'm a funny kid and now I can be funny on camera. Like, this is great. And then I landed All That through a very strenuous audition process. I talk about this all the time. I swear to you, every podcast that interviews me, their first question is like, okay, so All That, like, tell me, like, what was the audition process like? So I could talk about it here, although I'm sure I've already talked about it in a previous episode, and you've probably heard it in any podcast interview I've ever done. So it's a little hacky if I keep saying it. But anyway, yes, it was a very long audition process, very intense for a child. And I say for a child, but I think even now, if I had to go through like 7 or 8 round interview, I think that would also be very intense. That's a lot, man. That's a lot of callbacks. I get a little antsy when there's 2 callbacks. I like just the one, or just booking it on the spot, or them just calling me and giving me the job without auditioning. That's actually ideal. I would prefer that. But when I booked All That, I was living in Riverside, California, which is about 2 hours away from Los Angeles, where we were filming. So my family and I didn't really have a plan for where I was going to live in LA while I was filming. And driving back and forth every single day was a little too much. We needed time to like find an apartment or somewhere to live there. But in the meantime, when I first booked the show, we were living in hotels. And Nickelodeon did not really give me any budget for living expenses because technically I lived in California. They offered travel expense for, I want to say, Brian Hearn and maybe Giovanni, couple kids, couple of us. I can't remember who all. I want to say, was it just Brian and Gio? Maybe not even Gio. I don't know. But they lived out of state or far enough away from LA that Nickelodeon was like, yes, we will give you money to travel to Los Angeles to be on this show because we have cast you in this show and that's only right. But I lived technically so close to LA that they did not give me money for that, which is like, it's kind of sucks, but everyone knew Nickelodeon was cheap. This is so mean for me to say because Nickelodeon has been so good to me and they changed my life, but I was new to acting and it was made very clear by everyone else who was seasoned in the industry that like Disney is not cheap. Nickelodeon is very cheap. You're going to have to beg and plead them for every cent for your, travel expenses, moving expenses, whatever, like per diem, like whatever, like it's going to be really hard with Nickelodeon because they're very cheap. And this is going to be a little hard to understand if you're not in the industry, but back in the day, there were two unions. There were two acting unions. There was SAG, Screen Actors Guild, and there was AFTRA, which is like American Film Television Radio Association, whatever, like something like that. And one of them paid you residuals and one of them didn't. So you can imagine which one Disney was a part of and which one Nickelodeon was a part of. Disney was SAG and Nickelodeon was AFTRA. And let me tell you, I still to this day get residuals from my time on Even Stevens. And I will never get a residual from all that, ever. Never got one once, will never see one again. Granted, every time you get a residual from being on TV, if it was SAG, it goes down every time. So now my residuals from Even Stevens are like 25 cents. I'm like, don't send me this. I wanted to start this movement a long time ago where like any residual check under $1 gets put into like a fund for like homeless children or like something. I was like, how does SAG not do that? Like, stop sending us residual checks for 30 cents. I don't need 30 cents. Don't give me 30 cents. But if every actor who has ever been a part of a SAG show getting residuals, if they took all of their checks that were under $1 and put them in like a fund for like needy kids or homeless or like something like that, I don't know. I think that would be really cool. But actors tend to be very greedy people, so I'm not sure anybody would be on board with that. And also, SAG's kind of evil, but I didn't say that. I didn't say that on the internet. Nope, redacted. I never said that. They were never mean to me. Redacted. They were. Anyway, so that's just interesting to note is that any show that was SAG, you got residuals. Nickelodeon, I was on the show 4 years. Staple of the show, series regular, never saw a residual, never get a residual. It's just the way it was. Now they have merged. Now they have gotten married. SAG and AFTRA are now one. It is now SAG-AFTRA. And they have united their evilness. And I should really stop saying that. I have completely forgot. Yes. Okay. So because Nickelodeon was so cheap and AFTRA was so cheap and the whole thing, they were just cutting corners and they didn't want to pay for anything. They would not pay for any of my travel expenses to come into LA to work on this show Monday through Friday because I lived in Riverside, which was about 2 hours away. And they were like, that's close enough. That's close enough. We ain't going to pay for your travel. You live 2 hours away. I'm like, but it still just didn't make sense to drive in every single day. So at the beginning, my mom and I would stay in tiny little crappy hotel rooms because it was coming out of our own pocket. And we weren't the richest of families. So we were trying to find hotels near Nick on Sunset that were the cheapest possible. So we're talking Days Inn. I think we stayed at like this one particular Days Inn for a long time. And let me tell you, it was horrible and it was gross and it was dirty. And we often heard a lot of sounds through the walls that were very off-putting, especially for a child. Not sure if they rented by the hour at that one, but maybe they did. So it was a very strange existence where I was this actor and suddenly my dreams had come true in the sense that I had landed a role on my very favorite TV show, All That. However, after I got off the set, which was a magical place for me, being on set was so magical. After I got done on set, I would then have to drive to like the scariest motel imaginable. Like, just gross, scary. Like one of those, like I held my mom's hand like very tight, like going to and from the room. Like it's just one of those, hey, Lisa, my mom would be like, hey, Lisa, I'm going to go get ice. Can you please lock the door behind me? And then when I come back, I'll give you and then you'll know it's me. And then you can unlock it and let me in. Like it was like scary, guys. Like there's parts of LA that are like really scary, but I was just starting out on All That and I hadn't been paid for it yet. It was coming out of our own pockets. We had to do that. But the one thing that I really looked forward to is that I'd have this wonderful day on the set of All That. I'd go to this horrible motel, and then my mom would like read a book or like be on the phone or whatever she was doing, and I would get to watch the TV. And every night at I want to say like 8 or 9, this show came on that was called Space Goes Coast to Coast, and I had never heard of it. I had never heard anybody talk about it, but I looked forward to it every single night. It was like the one thing that I could turn it on and drown out the sounds of, whoever's beating whoever in the room next to me and whatever homeless man screaming on the street outside and whatever sirens are going by. Dude, it's LA, man. It's like scary. I was 13. So I really looked forward to this show. We ate our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, whatever food we stole from craft services that day. Just eating, bags of peanuts, like whatever. Like we're just eating snacks for dinner, trying to save money. And, but I always look forward to Space Ghost. And at the time, there were so many guests that I didn't recognize because I was so young. Like I didn't, like when the Bee Gees came on, Space Ghost, I didn't really recognize them. Like when Moby came on, I didn't really recognize him. I kind of knew of Bjork. Like they had these massive guests, but as a kid, I didn't really know who a lot of them were. But the way that they edited these interviews that were just like so awkward and so funny, I'm going to play like another example right here.
Greetings, I'm Space Ghost.
Spaceman.
Space Ghost.
You were a spaceman who died and became a space ghost.
I've always been dead, Conan.
No one can always be dead, Space Ghost.
I was dead long before you were born, Conan, and I'll be dead long before you're dead.
I truly feel like watching this show every night for a couple months, it was like the one thing I looked forward to. I really think that like sunk into my head and like influenced my comedy from a young age. It was funny because, I was in Hollywood, I was on a TV show, TMZ was such a big thing, and, celebrities were in the news all the time. But then here was Space Ghost Coast to Coast portraying celebrities in a very different light. Like if a celebrity was acting insufferable, like Moby did, they would just straight up make fun of Moby. Like they weren't there to cut it into an interview that made him look good. They were there to be funny. So then you get Moby, a massive star, and Space Ghost just makes him look like an idiot.
What did you think about the Shoemaker-Levy comet that crashed into Jupiter?
Shoemaker what?
The Shoemaker-Levy. It was a 3-stage comet that crashed into Jupiter.
Wow.
Yeah, and they'd said that if a comet like that hit...
Was that on a Tuesday? Because I think I had a guitar lesson that day.
Yeah, but you would think something like that. That's like being a policeman.
Listen, I can't worry about every little snafu. I have celebrities to talk to, like Moby.
celebrities' house. So celebrities are more important than the safety and well-being.
Nobody
of buying
cares,
donuts.
Moby. Nobody cares.
It was so funny. It was so clever. It was so well done. That it like really launched the whole Adult Swim movement, right? And I really encourage all of you guys to go back. I'm sure a lot of these episodes are on YouTube. I have a couple of them on DVD. However, I don't have a DVD player anymore because I used to play DVDs on my PS3, which now sounds like it's going to launch into space every time I turn it on, and also it heats up the room by about 10 degrees. So that's just a fire waiting to happen. Not interested in that. So I don't really play DVDs anymore, but I do have a lot of seasons of Space Ghost, those early ones, on DVD. And yeah, I mean, as the story goes, like it gained a cult following, and then suddenly they had offices and they had a bigger budget and they had, more people involved in the show. But it wouldn't have gone anywhere if it hadn't been for George Lowe. He was incredible. The voice of Space Ghost, like the way he said everything, just really made the character. He was so good, so consistently good. That the show, I really believe the show wouldn't have gone anywhere if it hadn't been for him. And not only did he have to play this character, he had to interview the celebrities. He would call in. Like, I guess, apparently, like during the pilot or the first episode or two, they would dress up as the characters in like a conference room and then interview the celebrities dressed in costumes. And it would be so ridiculous that the celebrities couldn't take it seriously. That's why the Bee Gees are laughing so hard, and they only use about 10 seconds of their footage because George Lowe was dressed as Space Ghost and they just couldn't stop laughing. So I think Space Ghost just blasts them. Super funny. So obviously that didn't really work, but they moved into a format where George would call in, and so they couldn't, obviously the celebrities couldn't see him, but they would have a full improv conversation and then later re-edit it however they wanted, add new interview questions, just manipulate it all to hell. And I'm not sure if that would fly now, right? Like, I feel it's, Zach Galifianakis did that a little bit with Between Two Ferns, but, kind of not making celebrities look like idiots. In fact, his shtick was he would make himself look like the idiot, which is great. But on Space Ghost, they definitely made the celebrities look like idiots a lot of times. Not sure that would fly anymore with publicists and all that stuff. But just a really brilliant show. And I remember as a kid telling other people about it, and they didn't really know what I was talking about, like other kids. I think even on the set, I was like, "Do you guys watch Space Ghost Coast to Coast?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, okay. And that's one of my favorite things about myself and about my upbringing, in the sense that I was alone a lot of the time. I was homeschooled. And so I was just like, I didn't really have a lot of friends. I went to dance a lot, and I had some friends at dance, and I would go to theater, and I had some friends at theater. And, I had some friends here and there, but there was just a lot of years as like being a homeschool kid. My mom stayed at home. My dad worked from home. It was just kind of like the three of us that I didn't have a lot of friends. And so I didn't really have the influence of friends and peers regarding film and music and television. I think looking back, a lot of us can agree that we liked a certain band or we liked a certain movie because our friends liked it at the time, and that was just the vibe. Like, I can totally admit that I love LMFAO, not because they're geniuses in the music business, which they actually kind of are, but like, not that they're like Mozart of music, but because of the vibe that it was at the time. The summer that LMFAO became popular, that was a summer I was living in LA. I had this great group of friends, Sean and Josh and Casey and like Penske and I had this great group of friends in LA, and we were just young and alive and full of energy and wanting to party and wanting to stay up late. And that was just like our anthem for that summer. So I think if I didn't have that experience, if you played LMFAO for me, I kind of would have been like, it's fine. But because it was the soundtrack to that summer with those people, that music meant a lot to me. And I have the LMFAO CD in my car. And every day I'm shuffling. That's not true. I don't shuffle every day like I promised myself that I would, but I do shuffle on occasion. I shuffle on occasion. But, and then there's also this sweet story where like Sean and I told each other that we loved each other for the first time on stage with LMFAO, dressed as a sailor and Lara Croft, respectively. And there's like inflatable zebras and balloons getting tossed around our heads, and LMFAO's there and they're singing "Party Rock is in the house tonight." And we're like, "Hey, I love you." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "I love you." I'm like, "I love you too." Like totally out of a movie, like a total 90s Van Wilder type of moment, right? But really sweet, right? Really cute. And so obviously this music means something to me because of the soundtrack of the time of it that it happened, and that group of friends, which means so much to me. But growing up, I didn't really have a lot of those moments, a lot of those groups of friends. So, Britney Spears would be really popular, and I didn't really know her music, and like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. I knew other girls who were into it, but it didn't really mean anything to me. I didn't really listen to it. And so I had a lot of weird interests. I liked reading sci-fi and fantasy novels, and I liked listening to Broadway soundtracks, and I liked listening to classic rock with my dad. And I knew, all these Van Halen songs and all these Led Zeppelin songs. And, I liked all that type of music. But to me, it wasn't weird that I was a, 12-year-old, 11, 12, 13-year-old who had my favorite music was classic rock. It wasn't weird to me because I didn't really have any friends to tell me it was weird, right? I didn't have any friends be like, "Why are you listening to that? You should listen to Jessica Simpson." I didn't have that. It's just me and my parents. So I feel like I had a really pure experience with music and movies and didn't have outside influence telling me whether or not it was cool to like that thing. I just liked it if I liked it and didn't like it if I didn't like it. And at the time, it did feel very lonely not having really close friends all the time. But looking back now, I'm so glad I didn't. I'd spend a lot of time journaling. I'd spend a lot of time writing. I'd write screenplays. I wrote my first novel when I was, I think, 13 or 14. My first screenplay when I was 11. Just crazy. I would spend all this alone time being creative. And looking back now, I'm just so glad I had that. Right? It was kind of lonely at the time, but I'm really glad I had that. And I kind of see Space Ghost Coast to Coast in that same light. Or none of my friends watched it. I didn't know anybody who even knew of the show, but I would get home from all that, a full day of work, memorizing lines, going over the sketches, rehearsing, being nervous to perform the sketches in front of the executive producers, and the president of Nickelodeon is here today, so make sure you don't mess up your lines, performing Sugar and Coffee and hoping to get laughs from the executives and the writers. It was, this very high pressure day. 8 hours of a lot of pressure as a kid, but also loving it at the same time. And then the decompress of leaving the set, going to this horrible motel, not liking it there, being a little freaked out, staying there, having no, like I said, we just had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We didn't have a fridge. There's nothing to do. I didn't have a cell phone back then, so it's not I could just sit and play on my phone. I just was just in this room, kind of just waiting for the next day to start. And all I had was Space Ghost. Space Ghost Coast to Coast was my show that I watched. So I just have a really fond memory of that show. And obviously George Lowe is the voice of Space Ghost, really made that show what it was. And he passed away, and it's quite a loss. And speaking of that, also, what was his name? Kurt from Good Burger also passed away recently. Show me hitting Brandon with the lunchbox real quick while I look this up. I'll do it.
What?
Come here. Okay, Kurt Boswell was his name in the show, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but it says Jan Schweiderman. Obviously, that's a foreign name. Maybe it's Jan? I don't know how to pronounce his actual name, but I do know that Kurt was one of the greatest villains of my entire childhood. He was such a good actor. Kurt, you're going in the grinder. He was so, you mess with Kurt and you go in the grinder. he was so good in Good Burger, like such an amazing villain. And I think what made it even more scary is that I never saw that actor in anything else as a kid. So to me, he was always just Kurt. And he had this kind of sweet smile in the movie that kind of balanced out his evilness. He was just so good. He was absolutely iconic in that role, and he passed away just like a week ago or so. Tragic, but I hope he knew that he left like a really lasting impression on a lot of us 90s kids, 90s, early 2000s kids. He was just such a phenomenal villain, likable and hateable at the same time. Something's in the Kurt. Who's Kurt? I'm Kurt. I'm Ed. I'm aware. You said you were Kurt. Such a good exchange from that movie. But yeah, I'm obviously at the age where celebrities and actors that I looked up to growing up are like now like passing away like more frequently than ever. Obviously Michelle Trachtenberg, such a loss. Beautiful, beautiful soul. Incredible actor. She was the first Nickelodeon movie star. Michelle was. And I never met her, but she did have a big influence in my life. I wanted to be a Nickelodeon kid. I then became a Nickelodeon kid. So obviously everybody in that famous Nickelodeon sphere I really looked up to. And Michelle was definitely there. I feel like I even auditioned to play Michelle's little sister in a movie. I'm not sure what movie it was, but I remember the casting saying like, we need the girls to look as much like Michelle Trachtenberg as possible. I didn't book it, obviously, but I think I had very bright red hair at the time. I don't think that's what they were looking for, but I didn't book it. But I remember knowing that because I was auditioning to play Michelle's little sister, I needed to watch footage of her and then, learn her mannerisms and like, how do I play this girl's little sister convincingly for this audition? She was just magnetic, beautiful, funny. It's so hard to find that combination of just like, she's a 10, right? This dime piece, but also incredibly funny. So funny. It's a rare combination. I really admired her for all of that. So I didn't mean for this podcast to take like a downer turn. I think it's more, I want to celebrate these people, right? George Slow, incredible. I mean, huge impact on my childhood. Kurt Boswell, greatest villain of any 90s kids movie, in my opinion. And Michelle Trachtenberg, just all around incredible actress. And I just, I hope that they knew what an impact they had on people like me. And I think my career would have gone a very different direction if I hadn't had the influence of people like them, their influence on my comedy and my acting, just everything. So anyway, go back and watch Good Burger. Go back and watch some Space Ghost. Go back and watch Harriet the Spy. Let's celebrate these people. They're amazing. And any of us could just keel over it any day. Look, this could be my last podcast episode. Who knows? I may walk out of my house today and get run over by an Amazon Prime truck. You don't know. They're everywhere. Who knows? I could just keel over. This could be it. And then they're going to show this and be like, this is the last known footage of Lisa. And I'm just like, that's the way she would have wanted to be remembered. Yeah. Good. Anyway, love you guys so much. Thank you for putting up with this show week after week. Love you guys so much. Buy some merch at leastfools.com, support the show, and come back next week. Mwah! I kissed before I did the blowing motion with my hand. Hold on, let me try again. Mwah! Much better. Banjo! No! Banjo was a sea monkey that Space Ghost was raising throughout the episode and then turned into a horrible space sea type creature and interrupted the Weird Al interview. But anyway.